I have a quick question around that, and that is, when you say real time, do you mean in process? In other words, that somebody who's part of an interaction like support staff or something, they're actually waiting on an answer? Because there's a difference between like being able to act quickly, and I mean, a lot of the real-time systems that I've built, the speed at which you can respond becomes incredibly important, because people actually look, even your staff members are looking at the screen going, oh, my computer's very slow today. Okay, like meanwhile it's done 100 million like calculations in the background to figure out what to tell this person to do. I mean, okay, it's a long-winded question, but are we talking about in process, or are we talking about near real time?
But you see, I think, isn't that then the overriding debate? Maybe just to step back from that. Last week when we spoke about the concept of time and why it is so fundamentally important to kind of flesh out your philosophy of time, firstly, and secondly, the view of how you're going to take time and translate it into your technology, is that you might, in some cases, deliberately delay an interaction to drive customer happiness. And in other cases, you want to be deliberately and intentionally, in motion or in execution, from a timing point of view, you want to be immediate with the feedback or the interface that you give. So I think that sometimes the big question, isn't it, is that do we just make this generic and say that everything can be real time, or do we decide that some part of that human in that system that might require certain kind of treatments or certain kind of responses to actions, you need to understand what it is that is important to them before you agree on real time that might be immediate, that means within milliseconds, or somebody who you're going to wait minutes, seconds, a week, a month. When do you decide to wait or not? So could you say that if you have a weekly recommendation that goes out to your customer base, that it's still considered a real-time problem?
You see, I wouldn't count that as real time. That's out of process as far as I'm concerned. What I'm thinking about is like when somebody's interacting with a website, whether it's a staff member or a person, and you've now got to take a few milliseconds or a few hundred milliseconds. I'm just drawing a distinction.
Yeah. But then the thing is, and I mean, Richard, this is probably the bigger question for us, is that what if we know that the ritual of a person's interaction throughout a day means that they will only really be open to us giving them a recommendation or involving us in any of the things we're going to recommend by the time they get to middle of the day when they have a break?
Okay, but you can't sell food after lunch.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the point, isn't it? So that means that if something is going to happen during the day or at the end of the week, would your real-time capabilities still be necessary for you to be able to do that? Because if you think about it, if something is going to happen on Friday this week, and you know that it has to happen on Friday at 10 o'clock this week, is it then a delayed action or a batch, if you think about in a machine learning or prediction world, a batch job, or is it something that your real-time predictor will stay attuned to, and at that time when it's ready to present something, only then present it?
Okay, I understand that. Okay, because of course the best decision we make is the one that we make as late as possible with as much information as possible. So your real-time predictor, although it's going to run at 10 o'clock, you run it at 1 minute to 10 o'clock for that person, or a fraction of a second before, using everything that's gone before. So it's scheduled, but it's real time. I get it.
So I think that's part of the debate that we're having, I guess, with ourselves at the moment, is just to say, well, how relevant can you become in the context of a human system, and how well can you embed yourself within that world so that you can take the cues that happen throughout a particular life cycle of a person participating in their day-by-day activities, and then have an intervention model that is still real-time, but it decides what it needs to do at the right moment in time.
Can I also just add to that there to say, I mean, perhaps something that's of vital importance as well is how versatile it can be. So to not apply the same treatment to every customer or to every interaction, to perhaps have like groups of people that require different styles of interaction, or as you said, different styles.
Yeah, but I think this is kind of the whole debate. And when we show you that tech in a moment, this is what I want everybody to kind of think about, is that there's a way that we've seen real-time historically, and that is that it is entirely based on a pull mechanism. So that means you wait initially for the human to take an action. When the human takes an action, you know that they have initiated whatever the event is that they initiated. You then, in real time, based on that initiation, go and check what it is that you want them to do next, or what you want to offer them next. You then intervene with that process through your nudging system, and you alter the course that they might take next, or the path that they might take next to get to an outcome. The flip side could be that, with the same concept applies, if you know that you've got, a broad spectrum of customers that you deal with, and a broad spectrum of people that you want to nudge, and you have a way by which you can determine that certain events will come up in their lives that are relevant to who they are. So that means that if you know that they are likely to drive tomorrow morning to a particular destination, and you want to test if they are actually driving, because the destination might be a restaurant that you want them to use your credit card, that you know that when they finish there that they must go, perform the next action. You want to be able to understand those sequences, and that means that you need to be real-time relevant, but you need to fit within that life cycle, so that it's not always being pulled from some way that you can in real-time determine what it is that they're going to be doing most likely next. So that's kind of the debate. Is it, how valuable is that? If you had to think of then the construct of your real-time predictor and what it would feel like to have it in real time and not in real time, means that at ground level, you need a base piece of technology that can manage the process for you. So what you want to be able to do is to configure a part of what you want to do that is historically based. So that means on data that you already have about how your customer behaves. And then what you want to be able to do is to use that to train a model and to get it ready and to prepare it in a way that you can then do a scoring mechanism that will help you to understand the real life activity going forward. And at the end of it, you want to be able to make decisions to say that, yes, can I use the same construct if I understand more about my customer's life to intervene when it's most relevant to them. So that means that ongoing cycle of the technical interface is something really worth thinking about. So what I'm going to do is I just want to share my screen and I'll show you something in a moment. Anybody else working on a real-time problem at the moment that is particularly interesting to them?
To be flippant or facetious, Jay, aren't all problems real-time?
It basically is, if you look at it the way we described it earlier, isn't it? Okay.
But Rob, that's actually a very good point, because the reality is, if we worry about stuff outside of the time, we can do something about it. And if we only responded in real time, we'd all be a lot happier.